faithfully convey value, interpreting great books from around the world. Hello, this is Sally's Book Talk. Today we're discussing the book When Books Went to War, subtitled How America Used Books to Win World War II. Some might question this title when they first hear it. When you think of war, you probably imagine soldiers bravely fighting, or military equipment like planes, tanks, and artillery, or strategies and tactics. What could books possibly have to do with war? Yet during 101, books surprisingly became America's secret weapon. U.S. Army Colonel Edward Munson said books, as primary tools for education, were not just valuable entertainment, but weapons to shape character and behavior. He believed war is a battle of wills, not just weapons. So how exactly did America use books to win 101? Today's When Books Went to War has the answers. Author Molly Guptill Manning, a renowned American writer and lawyer, compiled extensive historical research to write this book. It thoroughly explains books' crucial role in the war. All right, I'll break down the main content through three key questions. Second, why did America bring books into the war? Second, how exactly did America implement books in warfare? Third, what positive impacts did books have during World War II? Let's begin with the first question. Why introduce books to war? We must start with the historical context. Germany's Nazi dictatorship established in January 1933, and to consolidate power and control minds, Hitler launched book burnings. On May 10, 1933, Berlin's Bebelplatz hosted a massive bonfire celebration. But instead of wood, they burned over 20,000 books from university libraries. Propaganda Minister Joseph Goebbels personally directed this burning. Why burn books? Goebbels claimed it preserved German cultural purity by destroying un-German texts, threatening Nazi ideals, including Jewish works. The Nazis proclaimed, although Jews were powerful intellectually, they were deemed an inferior race by blood, so their books had to be eradicated. Works by many famous Jews like Marx, Freud, and Einstein were burned to ashes. This book burning was merely the beginning of Nazi Germany's book burning movement. So, to forge a new Nazi culture aligned with Hitler's ideology, Goebbels remained highly vigilant against politically progressive writers. Any books that hinted at pacifism, socialist reform, or liberalism were gradually banned and burned. Over the next decade of Nazi dominance, works by more than 10,000 writers were banned and incinerated. Besides books by German authors, those from allied nations like the US and UK were also targeted, including works by Hemingway and Jack London. Alongside burning books, to instill Nazi ideology and enhance the cult of Hitler, the Nazis mass-printed and heavily promoted one book, Hitler's autobiography, Mein Kampf. From its publication in 1935, everyone from school students to newlyweds was required to study it diligently. In 1939, World War II erupted in Europe, and Nazi Germany swiftly invaded Poland, France, Denmark, Belgium, and other nations.
The Nazis conquered many European countries rapidly, not only with ample troops and weapons, but also through ideological offensives.
Upon occupying cities, they also prioritized entering public and university libraries to burn books. This destroyed the spiritual backbone of these nations' people. Combined with forced indoctrination, this facilitated their mental enslavement by the Nazis. According to statistics, during World War II, the Nazis burned over 100 million books domestically and abroad. Additionally, Germany established global shortwave radio stations to launch propaganda offensives against the U.S. Thus, despite being far from the European front, the U.S. faced assaults of Nazi ideology. They even secretly hired some Germans who had immigrated to the U.S. In the U.S., radio programs broadcasting Nazi ideas brainwashed the public, and Germany's actions were condemned by intellectuals worldwide. The U.S. government began to realize that war wasn't just on battlefields, but also in the realm of ideas, where thoughts in books could be used as weapons. Between 1939 and 1940, Europe was ablaze with war. Although the U.S. wasn't involved in the war yet, given Nazi Germany's aggressive momentum, America had already begun preparing. Prior to this, the U.S. military had only 174,000 troops, which was clearly insufficient. In September 1940, the U.S. Congress passed the Selective Service Act, requiring healthy men aged 21 to 35 to be drafted, later expanding the age range to 18 to 50. This meant millions of Americans were eligible, and in 1940, the first batch drafted numbered in the millions. However, drafting such a massive number of recruits required extensive barracks and living training facilities. Due to urgency, the U.S. drafted soldiers first and built barracks later, but constructing them quickly wasn't easy. Many recruits had no lodging and shared crude tents. Barracks lacked ammunition, weapons, and even basic clothing and shoes. Many recruits came from comfortable lives and struggled to adapt. The poor conditions further lowered morale. Beyond training, there were no recreational activities, making life very dull.
Thus, many considered desertion.
Military leaders recognized this and believed equipping facilities quickly could boost morale. Additionally, proper rest and entertainment beyond training were crucial. This was equally vital for morale. So, what entertainment projects would work best? Initially, they considered building cinemas, but it was costly and impractical short-term. Providing books, however, was affordable and could be done quickly. Thus, books were introduced to barracks for soldiers to read during downtime. In fact, America has a tradition of using books in warfare. Historically, books were used in the Civil War and World War I with great success. During the Civil War, volunteers collected old books, and churches printed religious materials for soldiers. These books were usually easy to understand stories, short poems, or prayer books, and they were hugely popular with the soldiers. One Civil War veteran said this: "Soldiers on the battlefield were absolutely starved for books." However, book donations at that time were small-scale and private, not organized efforts. During World War I, the U.S. military's book services made huge strides. Civilian groups like the Red Cross, YMCA, and American Library Association systematically organized to donate over 1 million books to soldiers, many brought to the European front. Major Thomas Marshall Spaulding, who fought in WWII, had this to say about books in warfare. He said, "Books made our soldiers and allies feel life had value and sparked incredible fighting spirit in U.S. troops." After WNI, as the military downsized, book donations gradually stopped. But when WWN broke out, the tradition wasn't lost. President Roosevelt was also a book lover, a lifelong reader, buyer, borrower, and collector. He believed books symbolized democracy in the war of ideas and could serve as weapons. So, as America prepared for war, plans to provide books to soldiers quietly took shape. How exactly did America implement this? That's our second question today. Starting mid-1940, the U.S. military established a dedicated book service department to address soldiers' reading needs. But giving each new recruit at least one book required huge numbers, and buying them wasn't financially feasible during war prep. What could they do? That's when the American Library Association stepped up first. In 1941, with government support, the ALA launched the Victory Book Campaign, aiming to collect 10 million books for troops. In November 1941, initial promotion began with 500,000 posters distributed across every U.S. city. Simultaneously, donation facilities were set up nationwide just as preparations started. On December 7, 1941, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, prompting U.S. declaration of war, massively boosting public support for troops. In January 1942, the Victory Book Campaign officially launched, with President Roosevelt and his wife personally donating books, further fueling public enthusiasm. By late April, donations had reached 9 million volumes. However, while achieving significant results, the campaign faced several issues. First, public donations were limited. Early enthusiasm meant people donated nearly all available books from homes. As the war progressed, demand increased while household book supplies dwindled. The second problem was inconsistent book quality. Some donated books were severely damaged and unreadable. Others had inappropriate themes for soldiers, like knitting guides or funeral management books. The third issue was the book's bulkiness. Early 1940s American books were mostly hardcovers, profitable but impractical for battlefield portability. Thus, after reaching 10 million donations in 1943, the campaign paused, but book provision continued. The military established the Council on Books in Wartime, partnering with publishers to print specially designed books for soldiers. And from 1942 to early 1943, 6 trial editions labeled Emergency were printed. One author was Edgar Snow, known for Red Star Over China. His People on Our Side was among these 6 titles. This book focused on Asian geopolitics, covering China and India. After testing, mass production of armed services editions began formally in 1943, with new titles shipped monthly. The program continued post-war, totaling 123 million copies. General Eisenhower, who led D-Day, loved these editions, often reading novels to relieve stress. Regular American soldiers loved these books too. Before crossing the English Channel for D-Day, supplies airdropped to beach troops included food, candy, cigars, but armed services editions were most popular. Preparing for the Channel crossing, many lightened overloaded packs by discarding items, yet few discarded their ASE books. A New Yorker war correspondent covering D-Day observed ASE books easing boredom and anxiety on landing ships. Soldiers read ASE books quietly, looking as calm as during drills, not like men heading into deadly combat. Malcolm Todman, a Council on Books in Wartime leader, visited European battlefields to observe ASE usage. He saw soldiers reading in rain and snow, clinging to tattered books they couldn't bear to discard. When Todman tried collecting worn books to demonstrate their popularity stateside, soldiers refused. One soldier protested, "You can't take our books, right?" "Leave them here, we'll keep reading." In a Belgian field hospital, Codman found a blood-stained AC on the OR floor. Its owner, during critical surgery, had painfully abandoned his beloved book. Aboard the USS Independence, a soldier wrote in his diary, ASE books were so ubiquitous that anyone without one in their pocket stood out awkwardly. So why were ASE books so beloved? First, they were lightweight and portable. To solve bulkiness from Victory Book campaign donations, AEs used paperback binding instead of hardcovers. With lightweight paper covers, most weighed just 100 grams, never a burden during marches. The sizes were meticulously designed. Larger editions fit pants pockets, smaller ones shirt pockets, easy to access anytime. Armed services editions were immensely popular, but more importantly, it was their content. Considering diverse soldiers' needs, the Council on Books in Wartime carefully curated ASE content, covering all genres, even niche topics like philosophy, poetry, and music. Yet the most printed were soldiers' favorites: fiction, biographies, and history books. Based on soldier feedback, popular titles got reprinted and distributed wider. So how exactly did books contribute to America's war victory? That's our third question today. First, books gave soldiers rational understanding of war, exposing Axis powers' true nature, fueling their resolve to fight for peace. Take John Hersey's A Bell for Adano. It dissects Hitler's propaganda, revealing the Nazis' hidden agenda. It also affirms U.S. material advantages and the righteousness of their cause, destined to bring peace and progress. Meanwhile, war reportage helped rookies grasp combat's brutality and sacrifice's necessity. Like Theodore White's They Were Expendable. And a soldier who survived the Philippines says, "When enemies swarm, you just hold your ground, no matter how long." In war, human sacrifice is as routine as expending money or equipment. Even dying under Japanese machine gun fire holds value. Delaying enemies' minutes could sway entire battles. Books like Wendell Willkie's One World and Walter Lippmann's U.S. Foreign Policy shattered isolationism showing America's global duties and the need for worldwide collaboration to achieve peace. Beyond understanding war, books also eased soldiers' negativity, maintaining their combat readiness. War's brutality is obvious. Soldiers far from home face sudden injury, death, loneliness, fear, and pressure daily. They couldn't write home about these experiences, not wanting to worry families or risk sensitive info falling into enemy hands. And deep books became their emotional outlet. Among armed services editions, fiction worked best for stress relief. They included classics like Twain's Tom Sawyer, London's Call of the Wild, Zweig's Chess Story, and Wells' The Time Machine, plus newer works like Betty Smith's A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. Oh, this might have been the most beloved ASE book of all. Rumor has it its arrival at camps often caused near riots. Councilmember Collins once saw a crowd so thick around a barracks that soldiers ignored rare ice cream nearby.
Curious, he squeezed through to find soldiers scrambling for new ASCs. One triumphantly grabbed A Tree Grows in Brooklyn.
The soldiers shouted joyfully, nearly in tears. Author Betty Smith rocketed to fame, becoming a national icon. Soldiers adored her, bragging about autographed photos, some even naming daughters Betty Smith post-war. They loved how vividly the novel captured childhood. Many felt it mirrored their own youth, transporting them to cherished memories and stoking homesickness. One soldier wrote to Smith, "I've been depressed and lonely with no comfort anywhere. In 8 months here, I'd never truly laughed. Until your book helped me find myself again." Smith received 1,500 soldier letters yearly, replying to each and fulfilling every autograph request. Those replies and keepsakes became soldiers' lifelines through darkest times. Another favorite was Catherine Ann Porter's short story collection. Her talent for capturing inner emotions resonated deeply. Soldiers felt she understood their hidden thoughts. Many reported Porter's stories washing away their loneliness and isolation. Porter, too, replied thoughtfully to every letter. One soldier confessed watching comrades die repeatedly in combat while powerless to help. Feeling like a failed warrior, he'd sunk into hellish guilt until Porter's patient counsel pulled him from darkness.
Humorous writing also lifted spirits.
Like Ross Matthews Taylor's Happy Without Boundaries. Told through a girl's voice, it chronicles her mother managing a chaotic apartment building.
Though troubles abound, clever humor resolves them, delighting soldiers while sparking wisdom.
A soldier wrote to Taylor, "It felt like a home visit, easing my homesickness." Others said its hilarity made them temporarily forget the war. Soldiers loved Happy Without Boundaries so much, they flooded Taylor with requests for sequels, prompting the council to publish her next comedy, Riding the Rainbow. For wounded in field hospitals, books fueled recovery. Soldier Charles Bolt faced leg amputation in an African hospital. Then a friend gave him Hemingway's The Fifth Column and 49 Stories. A hero's tale there comforted Bolt, where another amputee wept openly to process pain. Until then, Bolt had never dared to cry.
After reading that story, Bolt buried his head in a blanket and wept bitterly.
He said, "Crying also helped me." Due to severe injuries, Bolt underwent multiple amputations, but he kept reading throughout his hospitalization. He believed books could help him adjust his mindset and stay positive. Bolt said that everything during recovery could make life feel heartbreakingly sour or wonderfully sweet. For many wounded soldiers like Bolt, while doctors healed their physical wounds, books healed their emotional scars. During War II, books helped countless American soldiers find courage to fight, overcoming fear, loneliness, and pain. After the war ended, these books didn't immediately fade from history. In August 1945, as World War II neared its end, the Council on Books in Wartime discussed disbanding, but with U.S. troops still scattered worldwide, ASC books remained necessary. So they kept operating until June 1947, when printing finally stopped. In Europe, due to Nazi book burnings, books were scarce. U.S. soldiers brought many to Europe, welcomed by locals, especially works by French and German writers like Rousseau, Voltaire, Heine, Zweig, etc., previously banned by Nazis. On the European continent, it was common to see Allied British and French soldiers proudly getting an ASC book from Americans. Proud of the books. In 1945, British publishers saw opportunity and released books resembling AC editions into the market. Books very similar to ASC editions were welcomed by the public.
Meanwhile, the Council on Books in Wartime continued publishing ASC books and launched an overseas edition plan.
In 1945, 72 books in multiple languages like English, French, German, and Italian were published and distributed across Europe. Most were American books, serving as tools for U.S. propaganda abroad. For U.S. soldiers returning home and facing reemployment issues, ASE books continued to help them. After the war, ASE books specifically published 20 Future Careers, discussing war's impact on employment and analyzing various industries. Books about sectors like textiles, aviation, publishing, education, medicine, and automotive industries also influenced veterans' career choices. Titles like The Story of Penicillin and Miracles of Military Medicine. Books inspired some veterans toward medicine. Novels like Country Lawyer and Inside the FBI drew others to law. Treasure House of Science, Science Remakes the World, Chemical Age, and Mathematics and Imagination sparked scientific careers. Books helped others resume pre-war studies and pursue scientific research. Some, moved by AC Books' powerful stories, became writers to document unforgettable war experiences. ASE Books dramatically reshaped America's publishing industry. Publishers saw huge potential in affordable, portable paperbacks. Hardcover's pre-war dominance ended, and by the 21st century, ASE books weren't forgotten. In 2002 to 2003, for ASC's 60th anniversary, they returned 100,000 copies across 7 titles distributed globally. They matched the 1940s design, including China's The Art of War. That concludes the main content of When Books Went to War. For millennia, books have preserved human spirit, serving as weapons for liberation and progress. No person or power can imprison ideas forever in concentration camps. As President Roosevelt said, people die, but books never die. All right, that's our interpretation of When Books Went to War. Reading notes are below the audio. See you next time.